What up, YouTube? This is Oryx bringing you a brand new video. Today we will be talking about my Major 1 bracket and my predictions for the Boston Major. Um, this has been a very crazy 4 weeks of qualifiers. A lot of upsets, a lot of up and down teams. I did predict every week. Last week was not any good, but some biased picks were made, and yeah, kind of screwed me over. Going into week 3, the last video I made, uh, went pretty well. Had two wrong picks. Um, LAG honestly looked a lot better, and Boston beat Heretics with two surprising wins. But besides that, everything was good in week 3, and then last week, I thought LAG would come in strong against Rocker. But Rocker brought in a brand new team, and not a brand new team, but they played very well, surprisingly, and were able to upset LAG because a lot of people had LAG. And then probably the biggest upset of the week was the Heretics OpTic match, and a lot of people had a lot to say after this. But some teams just play better against other people, and Heretics played amazing against OpTic. I mean, they went 2-0 on the weekend, but we all knew they were going to beat LAG. So this OpTic match was important for them, and honestly, it worked out for them. And a lot of people are saying it's not an upset. I really do think it's an upset. OpTic has a lot more talent, but Heretics has a lot more chem and more teamwork. But I think OpTic will get there, and eventually they'll be better and more consistent. I think that's what they need. They need to be more consistent during these matches. They start off very well on maps, and then halfway through the map they just start doing bad. But on to my other loss, which I had Surge beating Rocker. Surge was looking very good. Rocker this weekend came to play, brand new team, like I said, not roster, but just a new play style, and they upset it. A big match for them too, to make winners bracket. But and then obviously I'm a bit biased because I'm an OpTic fan, but I had OpTic beating FaZe, which honestly a lot of people thought that would happen because of the OpTic streak against them. But FaZe was able to pull a DoorDash. That's what they call it, DoorDashy. But yeah, no, OpTic lost, and FaZe ended up being undefeated, winning all their matches this qualifier weeks. And yeah, so that was my week 4. And honestly, pretty rough, but I had 3 good weeks, so something was bound to happen. But yeah, so these were the standings for the last week. This is where everything finished. FaZe ended up going undefeated. Toronto and Subliners lost 1 match. And then obviously Heretics took over OpTic's 4th place. And yeah, and Rocker is able to, pull through. Surprisingly ended up getting 6 and surged with 7 LAG. Out of all this, I think Boston, dropped down pretty far. But I think they'll show up on LAN, hopefully pull some upsets, but we'll see what happens. But yeah, this was it. So let's move on to my bracket. All right, so I have FaZe and LAG is the first matchup. LAG did amazing this last weekend, but FaZe is on a streak. Simp looks like the old BO4 Simp we all know. And yeah, and I'm gonna give this a 3-0. I think LAG, it's a young team, and I think they have a lot to prove. But I think this team against FaZe on LAN, I think this is where the jitters come in. A little bit shaky could start off. So I'm gonna give it to the vets. I'm gonna give it to FaZe. So yeah. So then the next match, Heretics versus OpTic. I know a lot of people have this rematch, and a lot of people are saying Heretics will probably win. I think OpTic will show out on LAN. I think they'll play a lot better. Pred, Kenny, might feed off this new green wall energy, something they've never experienced. So yeah, so I'm gonna say it's gonna be a close series. I'm gonna say 3-2, and hopefully they pull through. But yeah, this is gonna be a close match. I really do believe that. Next, Toronto and Surge. This is two teams that are probably looked after to be placing well in this event. But I think Surge right now will probably beat them. I think Toronto will probably beat Surge, but I do think Surge will beat them in one map at least. Might be the hard point, maybe Control. I don't know about S&D because Ultra's a really good S&D team and a hard point team, but they might pull out an S&D with Surge, especially with Illy. Illy's really good at S&D. So yeah, so then we move on to Subliners Rocker. Another matchup. Probably another good matchup for Rocker. Subliners has been looking very shaky. They're still really good, but all their matches go to the wire, and they end up clutching because their Subliners really good at S&D. But I do think that they have a little more for respawn, so I'd probably say maybe Rocker takes a Control, but I don't think they're winning this. I think these two bottom matchups are pretty straightforward, and I say Toronto and Subliners win this. And then we go to elimination round 1, and yeah, we have LAG versus Thieves. This is a very great matchup for them because Thieves have to prove themselves that they're good, and LAG is on a hot streak right now. So I would probably go LA Thieves. I would give LAG one map, maybe 2. This might be a close series. Could be a 3-1, but I'll give it to Thieves. I think Thieves have a lot more talent. They're used to LAN. I think LAG, has to warm up to this. Might be ready for next major, but I think that they might not be too comfortable at this major. And yeah, and I think LA Thieves have a lot more to prove and a lot more to play for. Then we move on to Heretics Legion. I think Heretics is very good right now, and I think their loss against OpTic wouldn't hurt them as bad because they're underdogs, even though they've already beat them. But I think Heretics will probably win 3-1. I think Legion isn't horrible, but I think Heretics, their play style, their teamwork will work in their favor and will be able to beat the Legion. Then we move on to the bottom of the bracket. Seattle Surge versus Boston. This is a really good match. Sadly, one is placing T12. Probably not deserved. But this is what it leads to. This is a very tough match. I do think they both win a map, and I do think maybe Boston wins the hard points, Surge wins the S&D. We just saw Boston and Subliners, and I think Boston would win the Control. And then it would come down to the hard point. Maybe Surge wins the hard point. Now, we have seen Boston play Subliners in S&D, which is a pretty good team, and FaZe, and they've done pretty well. But I think Surge in this position would have the better hand because Surge is a really good S&D team, and they'd probably squeeze out the Control or the hard point. Winning one respawn would definitely help them and go to map 5, and then they would probably close this out 3-2. Then moving on to the bottom, I think Ravens, they're pretty good, but I think Rocker is looking a lot better, and I do think that Rocker could beat them in a hard point. S&D, Ravens isn't bad, but I still think Rocker could beat them in S&D. And then hopefully Ravens win one map. I don't know if it's going to be Control or hard point, but I do still think Rocker wins this 3-1. And then we move on to elimination round 2. I honestly think I like Thieves Heretics. This is a good match. I still think Heretics has the upper hand against Thieves. They're pretty good. I think Thieves can take one map, but then after that, I think Heretics takes this 3-1. And then we move on to elimination round 2 on the bottom side of the bracket, Surge versus Rocker. This is probably also a close match. These are really good matches. I don't think I have many 3-0s besides probably the FaZe matchups. But yeah, I think this will probably be a Rocker map 1, Surge S&D. I would probably say Surge Control, Rocker map 4, and then probably Surge S&D, which would lead them to win 3-2. And then we move on to the top side, the winners bracket, FaZe OpTic. I think this match will be better than their online match, but I still think OpTic loses, even though I'm a diehard OpTic fan. This would probably go 3-2 if we're being realistic, and probably would lead them to go to losers bracket. Then Ultra versus Subliners. We just saw this hot 3-0. Subliners got smoked. I think Subliners will play a little better on LAN. I think they might take the S&D, Toronto the hard point, and then I'd probably say Toronto control, and then probably Toronto hard point as well. I don't think if this does go map 5, then Subliners have a chance. But if it doesn't go map 5 and it's just Toronto just wins all their respawns, then yeah, this will probably be a hot 3-1. And then we move on to the losers. Subliners play Heretics. I do think Heretics are really good, but Subliners with Kismet and Hydra, and then the addition of Sib, they've been playing well. Sib has been clutching up for them. I do think they'll probably take Hardpoint, S&D, maybe lose the control. I know Heretics is pretty ratty. They have a weird playstyle that helps them a lot. But then I think Subliners just takes the hard point. And it has a little bit more slaying power than Heretics. And this also isn't bad. I mean, Heretics coming all the way from T12. It's not bad. I think top 6 is what they are. But if they have to prove something, it'd be in this match. And then we move on to the OpTic Surge. We've already seen this. OpTic was able to win 3-1. I'd probably say OpTic Hardpoint, Surge S&D, OpTic Control, and OpTic Hardpoint. I think Surge has to work on their respawn, but they're a really good S&D team, and I think OpTic also is slacking in S&D. If this was to go to Game 5, it'd be very close, and I'd probably say Surge, but I'm going to be a little biased and say them for respawn. Yeah, so then we move on to elimination round 4. If I can move this. All right, so then we move on to Subliners OpTic. We have seen this matchup, and we know that Subliners is really good at S&D. I think OpTic, this is where they get tested. I think OpTic probably starts off map 1. Subliners bring it back, tie at 1-1. I think OpTic probably loses control, but then map 4 they win, and it would go up Game 5. Now this is very 50-50, and I don't want to say that Subliners might win. I'm still a little biased. I'm gonna say OpTic, but this can go either way, and this will probably be the turning point of the event. And I think whoever wins this will probably have the momentum to win the next match. We'll see who they play. Then we move on to FaZe Toronto. I think Toronto matches up very well against FaZe. I think Celium versus Scraps. I think this is where you want to beat them. You don't want to beat them. You don't want to play FaZe in a grand finals, because that's probably when they're the most hot. So I would probably say Ultra probably wins the hard point. FaZe wins the S&D. I think Ultra wins control and hardpoint. So I think this would be a 3-1. I think FaZe is better in S&D than Ultra, but in respawn, I think Ultra has a little bit more slaying power and will most likely win this. I do believe that FaZe has a chance of winning this series and would probably be a lot more closer. And if it went game 5, FaZe would probably win. But I don't think it will. I think Ultra knows not to let that go game 5. And they would probably try their best to win this 3-1. And then we move on to elimination finals. And I think this is where you would want to catch FaZe if you're OpTic. I think FaZe isn't wouldn't play that well after a loss, and then you would catch them slipping. I think you'd beat them in a hard point, which, to be honest, in their last matchup, they should have won the hard point. They're playing very well, but they lost the rotations on Invasion and weren't able to break American Hill. So then I would say FaZe takes S&D. This map 3 would be the biggest map of the series, because if OpTic can take it, then they have a chance of 3-1ing them. Now, if FaZe takes control, and I'm guessing OpTic takes hardpoint again, then you're probably going FaZe. But like I said, if they win control and they win the hard, and obviously they would win the hardpoint and win the series, but they would have to win that control. OpTic has to win the control to win this series. And then you'd have a Ultra OpTic Grand Finals. Now I could be a little biased here. But let's go through the best of 7. So I think Ultra probably wins map 1 for sure. Then probably OpTic wins the S&D. And then I'd probably say control has to be Ultra. Control Ultra. I think OpTic takes a hard point. And then I would probably say they take another S&D. And then I'd probably say control. I'd either say if it's another hard point, Ultra probably takes it. They go game 7. Honestly, Ultra hasn't been looking good in S&D. But you know, they have the momentum right now. So I would probably say Ultra. But I'm gonna be a little biased, and I'm gonna say OpTic. Now this is a little biased, well, very biased, because Ultra is looking very good. So if I wasn't an OpTic fan, I'd probably say Ultra wins this, and they probably will. But I'm gonna bet all my odds that OpTic wins this series, and hopefully they are major champs. Now there's the other thing: they're also a team that starts to win early in the season, and then they fall off. So maybe this is the major one cheese. But that's my bracket. I think that this is what major one would happen. Obviously a little biased with the OpTic picks. But yeah. This is it. This is my picks. I'm gonna save them. And yeah, I guess matches will start on Thursday. And we'll see who's reigns champion. And hopefully, we see an OpTic Toronto Grand Finals. But FaZe are looking pretty good, so I wouldn't be surprised. But yeah, this is my Boston Major bracket. And I'll see you guys on another time. Thank you.